The air around me turned to ice as I reached for the handle of the glossy black sedan parked at the curb. My father had been insistent that I use it, almost commanding. But before my hand could touch the door, a hoarse voice sliced through the street noise like a blade. "Don't get in." I froze and turned. A gaunt man with sharp, fever-bright eyes stared at me. Something in his tone, in the tremor of his voice, made me obey without hesitation. Without a word, I walked past the car, flagged down a cab, and left. It was only later that I understood why. Silence had always been the true language of my childhood. My parents wore charm like a costume, dazzling in public but ruthless in the privacy of our home. I learned early that appearances mattered more than truth. The only exception was my grandfather. He refused to play their games. With him, I wasn't a piece on their board. I was his confidant, the person he was preparing to carry the torch. He told me once, "Those who smile at you may already have the knife in their hands. Learn to smile sharper." I didn't grasp the weight of that lesson until much later. By the time I turned 25, things began to shift. My father's eyes lingered on my financial statements. My mother's questions about my future came softened with false concern. Small irregularities crept in, missing authorizations, altered agreements, until the truth emerged. My inheritance, the one my grandfather had built for me, was being drained in secret, not by outsiders, by my parents. Their betrayal wasn't sudden. It wasn't a knife in the dark. It was a slow bleed, deliberate and quiet. They weren't just taking money. They were dismantling the future my grandfather had designed. But I didn't explode. Anger is noisy. Anger leaves evidence. Instead, I remembered his words, "Smile sharper," and I played my part. I laughed at my father's empty jokes. I let my mother adjust my tie and rehearse her false warmth. Behind that facade, I was building my defense, quietly collecting everything: contracts, bank statements, hidden recordings of their whispered schemes. Piece by piece, I assembled a case they could never escape, and I waited. The reading of the will would be the stage where it all unfolded. Every relative, every attorney, every parasite in one room. The perfect audience. The car had been their final move, a last attempt to remove me before I could expose them. But the man who stopped me, the one on the street, was no stranger. My grandfather had once spoken of someone he'd trusted more than his own son, a man cast out of family records for refusing their games. I had found him years later, alive but forgotten, living in the margins of the city. He was the one who saved me from the car. And now, he walked at my side into the room. The lawyer's voice trembled slightly as he cleared his throat. "We'll begin." My parents sat poised and polished, but the moment they saw the man behind me, their composure cracked. My mother's hands tightened on the table. My father's jaw slackened. The brother they had erased from history was standing there, holding the original will. I placed my folder on the table. My voice was even, calm. "Before we proceed, there are some corrections." Gasps rippled through the room. One by one, I laid out the evidence. Every missing dollar, every falsified contract, every recording. And finally, the document they didn't know existed. My grandfather's true will, naming me sole heir and appointing his brother as executor. My father tried to speak, but his voice cracked. My mother wept, but the lawyer's words were final. Fraud nullifies claims. All assets revert. The life they had built on deception crumbled in front of them. I didn't smile. Not yet. As the room dissolved into whispers, the man beside me placed a steady hand on my shoulder. Justice wasn't loud. It was quiet, precise, the silence after the storm. As I walked out of that room, I finally drew a full breath. They had thought I was just another pawn. They had tried to erase me, but I was my grandfather's heir. And now, they finally understood what that meant.